Alright, it's time for another important update on all the most recent information and the forecast for both the Dixie Fire and the Tamarack Fire. Now there's a lot to go over in today's video, so I'm just going to dive directly into the Dixie Fire here. Now remember, throughout the day yesterday we had that really protective smoke layer over the Dixie Fire. We were about 15 degrees cooler, we had much calmer winds, and that allowed firefighters to get some great containment, some great control over the fire. But you can see throughout the day today, we didn't have that full thick smoke layer like we were seeing yesterday. In yesterday's videos, it was completely hazy. You couldn't really even see anything on the cameras. And you can see throughout the last few hours, there have been some periods of sunshine, although we do still have those high clouds coming through from that monsoonal moisture we've been talking about over the last few days. So because of that decreased smoke layer over us throughout the day today, temperatures were slightly higher, we had slightly stronger winds, and you can see the impacts that had on our fire behavior. For the most part, today still wasn't anything like we were saying a week ago with our fire behavior, but just from this video, you can see we did have some pyrocumulus development. That's where the smoke plume just goes all way up into the atmosphere. When you see those white tops on it like that, that's where you know you're having some extreme fire behavior. That's when you know that there's a lot of energy being generated by this fire, and more than anything, if you have that much rising air, you think about it, all that air is rising, so some air has to come in and fill behind that. So that leads to some erratic winds around the fire and usually leads to more fire growth. Now, one last thing I'll just say about this video, if you look really closely, I hadn't even noticed this before, but you can actually see a couple retardant lines being dropped here. And that was right there, you could see it. And that was actually a pretty important factor that we've been able to have throughout the day today. With the clearer skies, we were able to use aircraft again. That wasn't a possibility yesterday where you couldn't see a thing. So if we actually want to look at where that large smoke plume is being generated right now, you can see where that hot spot is on the Dixie Fire. It looks like it's mostly on that northwestern edge, which is different than previous days. In previous days, most of our activity was on that northeastern edge, but it looks like that northwestern edge is currently the area taken off right now, although you definitely still see some of a heat signature throughout other parts of the fire, like that northeastern edge as well. So I just wanted to go back to a video I posted on July 24th to Twitter, because I think this is one of the craziest videos that has come out of the Dixie Fire so far. You can see it was just burning straight through where this camera was. Somehow the camera survived, but what I was thinking about as that was happening was all of those trees right there. So if we actually want to see what those trees look like now, that is what the camera looks like right now. So I want to put this video in perspective, because I am going to be saying a lot of good news throughout this video, because we have had increased containment, much more control on both this fire and the Tamarack Fire. But I thought this would be a good video to show that, to really put it in perspective, that even if this fire does get under control over the next few days, the consequences of this fire will last much longer than that. As you can just see in this imagery right here, we've lost some structures with this fire. I believe it's up to 16, and there has been it's almost up to 200,000 acres burned now. So it's important to think about the long-lasting effects that we can get with this fire. But with that being said as well, fire is a natural part of the California ecosystem. So in some cases like this, I know it might look absolutely devastating, but fire actually is an important part of our ecosystem that actually helps our forests become healthier. So while it might not be pretty for the next few years, maybe even 10 years, down the line, it could actually be a beneficial thing, as long as it's only burning trees and not too many structures. But so kind of the two sides of the coin there when it comes to acreage burned. So I think this sums up what's been going on with the Dixie Fire over the last few days. If we go back to July 24th, from when that video was from, where it was burning through the trees like that, you can see how high those flame lengths were. Shows how dry the fuels are, that we have such extreme fire behavior like that. Still can't believe that camera survived. But on that day, the reason we had such extreme fire behavior, one, it's those critically dry fuels. 2, we had some stronger winds that day. You can see it was around 14 miles, or gusts to 14 miles per hour right there. But even more than that, the temperature on July 24th was 97 degrees. And then remember, I had some great news in our forecast update yesterday because of that thick smoke layer. Again, there's two sides to every coin. A very thick smoke layer is bad when it comes to air quality and being able to use aircraft. We had to ground a lot of aircraft yesterday. But the good news was the temperatures were 15 degrees cooler yesterday. Only got up to 82 degrees, and the winds were calm. So I think that summarizes the last 2 days. We had much reduced fire behavior yesterday, so they were able to make some great progress over the last 48 hours. Then if we look at the temperatures throughout the day today, you notice we still had a lot of those clouds from the monsoonal moisture, still a large amount of smoke over the area in the early morning hours. So we were still relatively on the cooler end, but a bit warmer than yesterday, which is why we had some increased fire activity over the last few hours. And again, that leads up to the present moment, so I'll have to continue watching that cam right there. So if we actually want to look at the perimeter for the Dixie Fire, we'll zoom on in here, and the first thing that I notice is how much less hot spots we see than in past days. I wasn't actually planning on doing this, but if we just go back to my Twitter feed here and just look for one of the older videos, you can see how many hot spots were around the Dixie Fire. We had some of those yellow dot hot spots there. That's where you know it's very extreme fire behavior. And if we look at it right now, actually I'm going to close that out. If we look at it right now, you can see we definitely still have some hot spots. Clearly from that video of the smoke plume that we watched at the beginning of this video, there's certainly still some active fire behavior going on, but it looks like we're trending in the right direction. And part of that's due to the cooler temperatures, part of it's due to more favorable just conditions overall, and that really great day yesterday that allowed firefighters to get some great lines in here. So if we actually look at the different parts of the fire, this southern edge is an area where they've been feeling very confident over the last few days. Again, it looks like it's burned all the way to Bucks Lake, but I know some of that was due to actually firing operations where it's fire that they purposely set to take out some of the fuels and protect the structures in that area. So just because the perimeter goes all the way down there doesn't mean that was just wildfire just raging through that area. Some of that was firing operation, and I know they were feeling confident in that spot. Now, speaking of spot, we did have a couple of spot fires on this northwestern edge yesterday, or earlier throughout the day today as well. You can actually see some of those dots outside of the previous day's fire perimeter. Basically what that is burning embers are picked up by some of the winds around this fire. It throws it over the containment lines, and then the danger there is it can start its own new fire, like we saw on that northeastern side. That originally started as a spot fire, and you can see how large that became. But the good news is, throughout the day today, they were able to handle those spot fires. But as we were seeing in the camera imagery right here, it looks like the fire activity has been picking up, and looking at the satellite, it looks like that fire activity is on the northwestern edge there. So I'm certainly going to keep my eye on the hotspots showing up on this side of the map, because that looks to be where the fire is the most active right now. Now, with that being said, we do have you can see the firing operations that have been happening here. That right there, whenever you see a very clear line, that means it's a firing operation. So they're actually doing that to clear out some of the fuels, so that by the time the fire gets to that point, it doesn't progress any farther. And you can see that they've had some great success doing that on this entire northern edge, which is great news because that's going to protect a lot of the structures around Lake Almanor. If we actually want to see where those structures are, we can turn them on. You can see large bunch of structures right there on Lake Almanor, right around the lakeshore as well. Some more on this northern edge as well. So great to see that successful firing operation right there, which would just hopefully stop this fire in its tracks if it were to continue to spread farther and farther north. But you can't see where those red hotspots are. I believe that is where the fire is the most active right now, where we are seeing that large smoke plume in that video. So overall, on the northwestern edge, they had some good success earlier today. Again, we'll have to stay tuned because that video right now where we see that active fire behavior is happening in real time, so we'll have to see how that situation changes up on the northwestern edge. But northern edge, I'm feeling much, much better. That looks like an amazing firing operation right there, really protecting Lake Almanor. Right here, that's actually an area, you might be wondering why it hasn't burned in there, but if we go into here, and it's good to see it hasn't burned there because you can see there's a number of structures in there, but I believe a large reason it hasn't burned in there is because you can see that's where the Chips fire was in, I believe it was 2012. You can see that where the Chips fire ends is where the Dixie Fire ends as well, and that's because a lot of the fuels are cleared out of right there, and that's why the fire hasn't just completely taken over that entire northern area. We have that little horseshoe where it hasn't burnt yet, and I believe a large reason for that is because the Chips fire already cleared out a lot of that vegetation. We actually saw the same thing happen on the southern edge, where we had the north complex go right up to the edge of the Dixie fire, and then by the time the Dixie fire got right there, a lot less fuels, and in some of these cases, they're actually able to reuse some of the containment lines from past fires. So, I know it's always bad to have wildfires, but it certainly does help you down the road when a lot of those fuels have been cleared out and there's already some containment lines put in place. Now, it sounds like my computer fan is going pretty fast right now, so I'm going to start closing out some tabs here so that the computer doesn't shut down. But when it comes to the numbers for the Dixie Fire, you can see we're right around 200,000 acres right now. Again, that includes the Fly Fire. Those have officially combined now, so the acreage burned from the Fly Fire now gets combined into the Dixie, and they're just calling it the Dixie Fire at this point. It is up to 22% containment though. That's some great news there. Again, gained some containment yesterday with those more favorable conditions, and again, I know I'm saying a lot of good news throughout this video of increased containment throughout this fire, but again, always check your local resources or the links in the description for the most recent evacuations. I know they've been changing a lot. That's why I don't even try to stay updated with them, because by the time you're watching this video, they might change. So I don't even try to say what the evacuation warnings are. The links are in the description. So when it comes to the structures destroyed, that number has actually jumped up since the last time I scrolled down to the bottom of this page, which was about an hour ago. So again, yesterday in their incident report, they were saying that they were going to send out some structure evaluation teams to see if there was any new structures destroyed, and it looks like we did jump up from 16 to 22. So again, my thoughts and prayers go out to everybody who has been affected by this fire. I'd say it's a pretty bad start to the fire season right now, starting a lot earlier than usual. This is a very large fire as well. Again, we're up to almost 200,000 acres right now, and to put that into perspective, that makes it now the 15th largest wildfire in the recorded history of California. And then they'll be updating that number as well. It is now up to 22 structures destroyed. Now, something interesting also to note on the top 20 largest wildfires is most of them are in August and October. And I don't say that I'm not saying that to try to scare anybody, but again, it's alarming to see such a big fire happen in July, because usually the peak of our wildfire season is August through kind of even November, when we start to get those Diablo winds. But the good news is we have lots of resources. We have some amazing firemen who really help us out with these fires, and you can see all the resources that we currently have on the Dixie Fire. 34 helicopters, 409 engines, 198 dozers, 90 water tenders, over 5,000 personnel, and 85 crews. So it's no wonder that even given the critically dry fuels and the challenging fire weather conditions, they've been able to get some great containment and protect a lot of the structures in this area, because there are a lot of resources on this, some pretty amazing firefighters out there. So if we actually look at the fire weather conditions moving forward, that's where there is the big question mark, because we do still have the chance for more thunderstorms tomorrow. And I think that is going to be the big uncertainty moving forward. For example, we've had this thunderstorm threat up there for the last 24 hours, and so far we haven't seen anything too critical happen. But again, with thunderstorms, you never really know. It's almost like a roll of the dice, because it can either bring some great rainfall, or it can also bring erratic gusty winds and some new lightning fire starts. So let's look at where that thunderstorm probability is coming from. And it really comes from this large high pressure system that you can see over Colorado and Wyoming. If you think about the circulation around a high, it's clockwise. So on the southern edge, we're taking a large amount of monsoonal moisture from Arizona, led to some pretty crazy thunderstorms in Las Vegas yesterday. There was some wild footage coming out of Las Vegas. And it's, again, because this high, it has clockwise circulation, takes that monsoonal moisture, funnels it right into California, and it actually looks like there's a low off the coast which spins the opposite direction, counterclockwise, so that actually might be funneling some of that moisture in as well on the right side of that low. So if we actually want to see that moisture, you can see the moisture is over us right now. It's been funneling it in for really the last 2 days now. And I was hoping to just see that moisture completely move out, but it looks like we're going to have on and off moisture continuing to flow through, even through Wednesday, Thursday, even some more on Saturday and Sunday. And then it looks like we finally return to normal California conditions. By about this time next week, we return to just completely dry air with onshore flow, which is much more typical during summer. So again, I think this thunderstorm activity will be continuing for the next 24 hours, and then it actually looks like it's going to pick up again later in the week as we get into Friday and Saturday. So we're certainly going to have to continue to watch the weather forecast and that monsoonal moisture, because again, so far we've kind of dodged the bullet in the last 24 hours with that thunderstorm threat with the Dixie Fire. But if you remember a week ago, it was those thunderstorms that came through that really kicked off that northeastern edge. So when it comes to the fire weather conditions, we'll just go straight to tomorrow because today's pretty much done with. You can see cool temperatures expected tomorrow and much more humidity than we were seeing in previous days. That's that monsoonal moisture and that cloud cover keeping conditions cooler. Little bit more moisture in the air, but you do see that thunderstorm chance of about 10 to 20% down there. Looks like they don't have the thunderstorm chance on Wednesday, but it looks like they are expecting it to get drier and warmer. So it's kind of the two sides of the coin on this one. Thunderstorms can make it cooler with a little bit more moisture, but then it can also lead to, again, the erratic gusty winds and some lightning starts. Or you have no thunderstorms and then it gets warmer and drier. So there's different factors that can affect the fire in different ways. So that's why you really have to think about everything. When it comes to the overall forecast for tomorrow, I would say temperature-wise, that's about as good as we've looked in the last week. Humidity-wise, that's about as good as we've looked in the last week. Looks like the afternoon wind gusts aren't going to be as strong as we've seen as well. But again, if a thunderstorm comes through, that's where the sustained winds don't really matter, because around a thunderstorm, you can get some erratic gusty winds up to 30 or 40 miles per hour. So that's the big question mark right there. I'll try to do this forecast for the Dixie Fire around 3 or 4 o'clock tomorrow. That should be the peak time for the thunderstorm probability, although you can see it lasts throughout from about 5 a.m. tomorrow morning until about 4 p.m. There's about a 10 to 20% chance, so I'm going to be watching that closely all day tomorrow. Again, just to summarize that, you can see where that thunderstorm probability is tomorrow. It stretches throughout the Sierras and then into northern California as well. So again, that's the big thing I'll be watching, because that's the one kind of question mark remaining for the Dixie Fire. But overall, I would say I'm feeling much better about this one than I was a week ago. About a week ago, it looked like it was just never going to stop. That northeastern edge was growing about 50,000 acres a day. You can see that while we do still have some growth with this fire, and we did still see some active fire behavior in the last 3 hours, overall this fire looks like it's, I don't want to say calming down, because this video right here certainly doesn't look calm, but I'd say we just have a lot more control and containment than we previously did, and there's some great lines in. Firefighters have been doing an amazing job on this one, so definitely starting to feel a bit more confident. But with that being said, with that thunderstorm possibility tomorrow, you really never know what's going to happen, so we'll just have to continue to follow this over the next few days. So, as always, I know I just said I'm feeling much more confident about the Dixie Fire, but there are still a large number of evacuation warnings in place. These keep changing every time I look at the list, so you can find the evacuation information by clicking the links in the description or going to CAL FIRE. I think it's .org, .com, not exactly sure what it is, but again, the link is in the description. So now let's go to the Tamarack Fire, and I think this summarizes what was going on with the Tamarack Fire today. You can see much more of that thunderstorm activity. Let's see if we could turn on infrared. It might look, yeah, you can see that large thunderstorm going directly over the Tamarack Fire, and we actually have a flash flood warning in place throughout. Actually, it might be up right now because it was through 9 p.m. and it looks like it's about 9:15 right now, but Tamarack Fire, that was the big story throughout the day today. Had some thunderstorms moving through, but overall, things are looking pretty good on the Tamarack Fire. This shows the conditions throughout the day today. You might be able to see some rainfall at some points in this video, get some showers. You can see that retardant over the exceptionally dry fuels down there, but again, in previous days, we were seeing massive smoke plumes just blowing up in this video camera, and clearly you can't see that right now, so things certainly look like they're improving for the Tamarack Fire. And when I show the containment map, it certainly looks like it's improving. Just 1 second, I'm going to close some of the previous tabs just to see if we can get that computer fan to quiet down a little bit. So again, with those thunderstorms that I just showed that were moving over the Tamarack Fire, we do have that flash flood warning in place. You can see it stretches all the way down into Southern California as well. And again, that's all due to that monsoonal moisture that's been flowing in from Arizona. So that's always a concern when it comes to the fire area, because where the fire burns, it gets rid of a lot of the vegetation. It's the vegetation that holds hillsides in places. So that's where you do want to take flash flood warnings seriously, especially after a wildfire, because it doesn't have that structure holding the hillside in place anymore. So looking at the map for the Tamarack Fire, this is some great news right here. You can see, let's just pull up my Twitter again so you can see what the Tamarack Fire looked like about a week ago, and we can compare it to that map right there. If we go back to July 23rd, I believe that was a big day for the Tamarack Fire. You can see large amount of hotspots on that entire northeastern edge, and especially where we're near a large amount of structures on that northeastern side as well. So again, this was a big concern, because if we actually want to see where those structures are on that map, you can see large amount of structures right where this fire was. But looking at where the current hotspots are, very few hotspots left, and I believe some of those, if not all of those, are actually firing operations. So really very few hotspots remaining on the Tamarack Fire. And when it comes to the containment, you can see we're now on that entire northern edge is fully contained. And again, that's where we have the most structures. If we turn that back on, you can see large amount of structures on that northern finger right there, right between where that spot fire jumped Highway 395 and then this whole area right here. But if you look at where the current containment is, it's that entire northern and northeastern side. So great progress being done on the Tamarack Fire. Again, we had some favorable conditions over the last couple of days. That smoke, well, again, I talked about this with the Dixie Fire. Well, smoke is sometimes a bad thing due to air quality. I have some friends in Tahoe right now, and they said there's been a lot of smoke over the area, and that's never nice. But when it came to fire behavior on the Tamarack, it was actually a great thing, because it provided almost a protective shield from the solar radiation coming in. So we had much calmer winds, lower temperatures, really moderated fire behavior, and you can see the improvement in that containment just in the last 48 hours to the last 3 days. They've really been getting some great progress on this fire. Now, with that being said, you do still see those evacuation warnings in place. I believe I have the link in the description for this map as well. Now, when it comes to the Tamarack Fire, again, the big priority was that whole northeastern section because that was where the most structures are. But again, looking at the containment map, looks like we are good up there. I do know some of the evacuation warnings have been lifted in some areas of this fire. And if we look at where the fire is still uncontained, it looks like it's the southern edge. But this is an area of the fire that has really seen very slow growth throughout the entire fire's lifetime. They didn't even have any resources on the southern edge, and it basically just put itself out. One, because it was backing down some areas of hills, just slowly moving, and then also if we look at fire history, we had the Washington Fire in 2015, and you can see that even without any firefighting personnel on this southeastern side right here, the fire just stopped because where it moved into the Washington Fire, there weren't as many fuels to burn, and the fire basically just stopped in its tracks. So great progress being done on the Tamarack Fire overall. When it comes to the acreage burned, this was updated 2 hours ago. You can see we're at 68,000 acres, which certainly isn't up very much in the last few days. I believe we were at 60,000 acres like 3 days ago, so haven't seen much growth in the last 3 days, and I'm expecting, I would imagine we stay below 70,000 acres. Unless they do some new mapping campaigns, it looks like this fire just, I don't want to get ahead of myself here, but it looks like just based on the active hotspots right now and how much of that fire we do have that containment on, we're looking pretty great on this fire right now. So I'm gonna put the number on that. I'm hoping we stay below 70,000 acres. We'll see if it happens, but that's part of the reason I'm so confident on this one. 54% containment right there. And part of the reason I'm also confident, we have 1,500 personnel on this fire. But with that being said, that is the line to think about right there. Outflow winds from thunderstorms could cause erratic and extreme fire behavior. So I am confident right now, but there is still a big question mark in the forecast for this fire, because with thunderstorms you can get gusty erratic winds, you can get some new lightning fire starts as well. So that is the big question mark in the forecast. So let's just look at what that fire or the thunderstorm probability is and where it's coming from in the first place. So again, it's that high pressure system that's continuing to strengthen over Wyoming and Colorado, and due to that clockwise circulation, it's taking that monsoonal moisture from Arizona, the same moisture that caused all those thunderstorms over Las Vegas last night, and it's funneling it into California. And not even just thunderstorms in Las Vegas last night, thunderstorms over the Tamarack Fire throughout the day today. Again, there is a flash flood warning in place. So with that circulation around the high, you can see how it's been funneling all that moisture in. And just like with the Dixie Fire, it looks like there's just patchy moisture coming in throughout the week, and then it looks like there's a large wave of moisture coming in again Friday and Saturday. So looks like we'll have increased thunderstorm potential Friday and Saturday, so we'll have to keep a close eye on that. And then it looks like by the start of next week, we return to more normal California conditions where we just have dry air and onshore flow. Now, when it comes to the fire weather forecast, you can see temperatures not as warm as we've been, just in the low 80s over the next 2 days. We do still have some afternoon winds picking up, but again, not as bad as at the very beginning of this fire where it was gusting 20 to 30 miles per hour and really extending that northeastern section of the fire. With some of that moisture that is flowing in from Arizona, you can see that our humidity is a bit higher with this one, but that's the big thing to think about here. Again, pretty actually good fire weather conditions compared to, for our temperature, winds, and humidity compared to what we've had throughout the lifetime of this fire. But that, again, is the big question mark down there until about 10 p.m. tonight. So pretty soon ending here, we have that 30 to 50% chance. And then it drops down to a 10 to 20% chance until 10 p.m. tomorrow. And then it looks like it jumps back up on Wednesday, expecting more thunderstorm activity on Wednesday, with that chance jumping up to 30 to 50% chance and 30 to 50% probability, and especially during the afternoon hours on Wednesday. So just to summarize that up, I'm feeling confident about the Tamarack Fire. They've gotten some great containment throughout this. Looks like there's very few hotspots remaining on this fire, but we do still have that question mark of if thunderstorms could bring in some gusty, erratic winds, and what that might do to any smoldering areas that might still be active on this fire. So that basically sums up my main concern when it comes to the Tamarack Fire. It's that continued thunderstorm chance. This is the map for tomorrow. You can see it completely covers the Tamarack Fire area, and certainly I'm seeing thunderstorms through there right now. Large one coming through currently, and that is creating that flash flood warning in effect. So that basically sums up the Dixie Fire and the Tamarack Fire if we want to just take one last look at it. When it comes to the Dixie Fire, again, I think the best day was yesterday when we had that thick smoke layer. Temperatures dropped by about 15 degrees, and they got that great firing operation completed up on that northern side. I imagine they'll actually try to connect it to this other firing operation as well. And we also got some great structure protection on the southern edge of what used to be the Fly Fire. Some good dozer lines in to protect the town of Quincy, and great progress being made on the entire southern edge as well around Bucks Lake. So a lot of good progress being made on the Dixie Fire. Again, that one with the combined Fly Fire acreage is now up around about 200,000 acres. Now when it comes to the Tamarack Fire, feeling even better when it comes to the Tamarack Fire, because the key priority areas, that northern area, that northern finger right there that had the large amount of structures, and then that northeastern finger which had even more structures, you can see very few hotspots remaining there. And looking at the containment map, basically wraps around that entire northern and northeastern side, so certainly looking good there as well. But the big question mark, again, when it comes to the Dixie Fire and the Tamarack Fire, is that continued thunderstorm threat. So we will continue to monitor that over the next few days. I'll continue to do these updates and forecasts, and this really isn't actually just for the next few days. I'll continue to do this throughout the entire fire season. Again, we have some critically dry fuels right now. Our work at San Jose State and the Fire Weather Research Laboratory is showing that a lot of the fuels throughout California are the driest we've ever recorded. So I hate to say it, but it's going to be a long fire season, so I will be here every step of the way giving updates and forecasts covering all the major wildfires. So you can subscribe if you want to stay updated with that, and you can also follow me on Twitter where I do more concise updates around 1 minute. So hope everybody's done well. Huge thank you to all our firefighters out there. Thoughts and prayers go out to anybody who's been affected by these wildfires, and thanks for watching.